Hi, and welcome to the Stage 2 video for the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt. My name is Kim Newlove. I am the host of the Perrysburg Podcast, which you can find at perrysburgpodcast.com. I am a Perrysburg resident and a participant in the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt, but I didn't organize it. I wasn't part of the planning phase. So this is kind of my family's experience with the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt Stage 2. In my Stage 1 video, we talked about the Stage 1 materials and all the different people, places, and things that we encountered along the way. And now we're going to switch our focus to the Stage 2 materials. And to make everything crystal clear, and so I don't have to keep holding up little pieces of paper throughout the presentation, I'm going to just show you what I scanned into my presentation slides, and I used a great tool called canva.com to make presentation slides. At this time, we're going to switch to that presentation. Hello, welcome to the presentation for Stage 2 of the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt. This is just my family's experience with the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt, Stage 2. On the left, that's me, Kim Newlove, and I'm holding the bumper sticker that we earned for finding the treasure, and we found the treasure on July 23rd. We got the bumper sticker on the 27th of July. In the blue shirt, we've got my husband, Nathan, and in the green shirt, we've got our son, Craig. He's 23 years old, and just a heads up, he has autism, and he doesn't look at the camera and smile in most of the pictures that you will see tonight. But I promise you, he had a great time. We all had a great time. And then in the background, we've got Kate French. She's one of the keepers of the hunt, and her daughter. And we are in the basement of Way Public Library there, just in case it looks familiar to you. And this was Hunt headquarters on Mondays and Saturdays. Moving on, I'd like to start with some gratitude. Thank you so much to Kate and Lacey, the keepers of the hunt, for dreaming up the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt. My family had a blast. We solved puzzles, we found clues, we went here, there, and everywhere. We met people. We saw things that we didn't know existed in Perrysburg, even though we've been here for almost 20 years. We had an awesome time. So thank you very much to Kate and Lacey. And I know it was a team effort, so thank you so much to all of the organizations and sponsors who made the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt happen. It was awesome, and we could tell y'all worked really well together. So thank you so much. And special thanks to Kate French for permission to share our treasure hunt journey here on YouTube. At this time, I'm going to say that Stage 2 for us started with the envelope that we got at the Perrysburg Farmers Market at the Treasure Hunt headquarters there on Thursday, July 9th, 2026. That's how it all began. Once we opened up our Stage 2 materials envelope, we found a number of items, and included was this letter that you see on the right. As you look at this on your smartphone or a laptop, a tablet, etc., it might be kind of small, so I'll just read it to you now. It says, "To those who have completed the 12, you have gathered every mark, you have walked the paths, read the signs, counted, searched, and endured. Many stop here. You have chosen not to. What lies ahead is no longer a collection of separate discoveries. From this point forward, each revelation leads to the next. One answer unlocks another. A single misstep may send you wandering. Proceed carefully. Within this envelope, you will find materials whose purpose may not yet be clear. Keep them, guard them. Nothing included here is accidental. Every piece will matter before the end." Before you continue, a reminder. All clues can be solved using public spaces and publicly visible information. Do not tamper with, remove, alter, or damage any hunt materials or property. Any such action will result in immediate disqualification. No digging, excavation, or physical alteration of the environment is required or permitted at any point during the hunt. And for official guidance, clarifications, updates, and any important announcements, consult perrysburgtreasurehunt.com. And then at the bottom, it says, if you encounter a problem, discover damaged materials, or require accessibility assistance at any point, please email perrysburgtreasurehunt@gmail.com. Above all, remember, this stage demands patience, precision, and trust in what you have already gathered. You are closer than you think. Your first clue awaits below. Good luck. the keepers of the hunt. And then at the very bottom, in a brown rectangular box, it says, a great and silent matriarch stands nearby. With each circle of the sun, 1,000 fans turn to falling gold and scatter at her feet. A fossil still living, she, a witness to Perrysburg's earliest days, her ancestors older than time itself. Growing still and patiently waiting, find her on East 2nd Street, just a short walk from the library. She will guide you. And that ends the contents of the brown rectangular box. In summary, each clue in stage 2 leads to the next one. So we had our first clue, and we got started on July 10th. It was a Friday. So Friday, July 10th, 2026, we parked on East 2nd Street in front of the public restroom that's right next to 2nd Street Dental, and we looked for the right tree. And it was starting to get dark. So we tried to find it as quickly as we possibly could. My husband and I were there with our son, Craig. And after about 20 minutes of searching, I asked my husband, hey, Nathan, did you find any trees that were different from the others? And we had, gone to ChatGPT and asked what kind of a tree it might be. And it said a ginkgo tree. And my husband said, I don't know what a ginkgo tree looks like. And of course, neither did I. We didn't get that far. We didn't Google that. And he said, but there's this tree that has a QR code on it and it's all lit up. And I said, take me to that tree. He showed me, and that was it. So what we did was we scanned the QR code on that tree. The tree's in front of 209 East 2nd Street. And like I said, it was starting to get dark. It was 8:15 p.m. when we scanned the QR code. This is what we saw. In the center, there's a puzzle, and I know it's kind of tiny, but it looks like there's a bunch of leaf images, and it looks like the leaves are trying to tell you something, as if they're arranged like letters. So this was the tree puzzle, as I call it. And the puzzle key was inside the stage 2 materials envelope. Hopefully that makes sense. If you look at the bottom left of this slide, you will see the large manila envelope with a puzzle key on top of it. That is the key that we used to solve this puzzle. Hope that makes sense. And then my chicken scratches on the right there, my printing. My husband and I solved this puzzle together. And as we were solving this puzzle, we thought of the movie A Christmas Story with Ralphie, and he's got his little decoder ring, and he's trying to decode the message, and he's saying A, B, C, whatever the letters were. I don't recall what it was. I think it was drink your Ovaltine. So he found the first letter D, R, I, and when we were trying to decode this message, we felt like Ralphie. And when we decoded a lot of puzzles, our handwriting was not exactly the best because we were doing it one letter at a time. Anyways, the decoded message talks about finding how old a tree is. What year was this tree planted? We had to do some math. We had to figure out the circumference of the tree. So this is us measuring the tree with a seamstress ribbon, as I call it. We put a piece of duct tape on the tree to, I guess, identify our starting point. And then we went around the tree a couple of times and we found out how large around it was, what the circumference of the tree was. And we had to do the math that was talked about in this puzzle. I'll read the deciphered puzzle to you now. It says, now that you have found her, pause a moment beneath her canopy. You stand in the presence of time itself, the keepers of this house, stewards of this brief chapter of the matriarch's long life, have granted you leave to draw a measure from her. At 4 feet above the earth, wrap her in a circle and take her measure, not at her roots, not at her reach, for the sky, but where a person might meet her eye. Assume this as you reckon with her years. Her outer armor, etched and furrowed, is 3/4 of an inch in depth, and within each passing year has left its mark. Rings laid down at a steady rhythm of 1/6 of an inch. Account for the armor that is not her age. Determine the number of rings within, and let that number carry you backward through time to the year she first took root. When you have found it, you will know where to look next. So the answer was 1890. And like I said, we measured the tree, did some math, and there was the number. So when we originally found this puzzle, it says in the directions there in the center, decipher the text, then scroll down to enter your answer. The website that we had to go to was perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/golden fans. Like I said, we measured, we did our math, and that is what it looked like at the bottom of that webpage. We entered in 1890 and pressed submit. That took us to perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/spire bearing. And this was, again, still on July 10th, right after we had measured the tree. And it says here, turn now to the map you carry from the ancient mother of fans. Lift your eyes one block toward the north wind, where a pale blue spire pierces the sky, capped with gold, and bells have long called the faithful home. Set a careful mark. Keep this point in memory. Its purpose will be revealed in time. And then there's a box that says onward. So we clicked onward, and it took us here to perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/pigpen. We'll come back to this in just a moment. What you see here on the screen is part of the treasure map that was in the stage 2 materials in the large manila envelope that I showed you at the beginning. What you're looking at here is the X already on it. X marks the spot. So I left my X on it. But the first point, or pin, as they say, in the directions that we had to put on there is marked by that red arrow and the number 1. It was St. Rose Church. So the first pin, so to speak, was St. Rose Church. And then the directions here on this, it just says a new key is placed in your hands. So a new key for a puzzle. It's the Pigpen cipher. You do not yet see the gate it fits. When you do, open it wisely and do not let the pigs run free. And so I was thinking, oh, we got to go to a farm or something. I didn't know what the pig part was, but I think it was just a joke, you know. We did not use this key right away. At the bottom of this page, it said onward. We clicked on that, and it took us to this. All these website clues had their own / for the perrysburgtreasurehunt.com website. So this one was perrysburgtreasurehunt.com / Commodore Circle. The screenshot that I've got at the bottom is in white. I'm going to summarize this for you because it is super tiny print. It basically tells you to find a member of the Commodore's circle, tell them, don't give up the ship, and they will respond with the next clue. It also says, basically, you can find members of the Commodore's circle at some of the places you've already been. Now, I didn't know what the Commodore's circle was, but it's right there at that screenshot, that circle that has Commodore Perry, and it says the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt 2026. That is the Commodore circle, and I didn't know that. We got stuck because of that. We couldn't find the Commodore's circle. What I ended up doing was going to Hunt headquarters on Monday, July 13th at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I got a hint from Lacey. Lacey was wearing a Commodore's circle button. I believe it was magnetic. And we said to her, don't give up the ship. And she said, seek the lighthouse locked by land. And I knew right away there's only one lighthouse in Perrysburg. So I knew we had to go to the street known as Lighthouse Way here in Perrysburg. And if you look on the right side of this slide at the very bottom, you'll see a white board staked into the ground. That was the next clue. It's a numerical clue, and the key was in the envelope, the stage 2 materials envelope. Again, the puzzle is at the top left. It's a bunch of numbers. I know it's really tiny. Sorry, I can't make it any bigger for you. And then the key is at the bottom. And again, that was in the envelope. And the decoded message says, "Where the town's heart greets the edge of morning, two doors face each other, greeting the day. At one, the storyteller's cup is poured. At the other, two loyal companions lend their names. Choose a single threshold and step inside. The choice is yours. Both serve the morning light and set the hours in motion. The circle of gold you carry has purpose here. Silently pass it to the keeper of morning, and when it changes hands, time itself will move forward." All right. So that's the decoded message. And there was a circle of gold, this gold coin. You can see it at the bottom right there. I passed that over to the barista at Maddie and Bella, and she gave me the next clue. Now, a word about the bards. The bards would have been a good option to go and get a clue as well, but it happened to be closed when I stopped by on July 14th around 1:30 p.m. The next clue that I got is on the left side, and on the right is the key to unlock what is known as a pigpen cipher. If you look at the left side of this slide, at the very bottom, you will see a bunch of gibberish, and you can decipher it using the key on the right. Hope that makes sense. So what we did was we found that the message says perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/day and night, night with a K. And then there's 4 underscores, a red one, a yellow one, a green one, and a blue one. And there was a www at the very beginning of that, perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/day and night. The clue also has 4 different latitude and longitude coordinates at the top. I put a rectangular red box around it to draw your attention to it. And it turned out that all of those coordinates are for 4 separate locations within W.W. Knight Nature Preserve on White Road. So what did we do? We headed over to W.W. Knight. That was on July 14th around 8 o'clock in the evening. And we found 4 different flags with numbers at the coordinates that were provided. The tool that my husband used was Apple Maps. We had never done anything like this. Apparently it's called geocaching, and I've never done geocaching. So we got a crash course in that. My husband was the MVP for this activity. I did not know how to do it, and he figured it out. So the numbers that were to go in this website that we found on that clue from the barista are 1776. Those are the digits. So we completed this website, perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/day and night 1776, pressed enter, and it took us to this next clue. It says, "Turn again to the map you carry, set a careful point where stone rises high in remembrance above the river's old ground, where the frontier once held the line. This mark will serve you yet, but for the moment, proceed." And then there's a box that says onward. What I took from this was that we need to mark the map. What you see here is the treasure map that was provided in the Stage 2 materials. On the bottom left, you'll see a red arrow with a number 2, and it is pointing to the monument at Fort Meigs. There was just a little tiny triangle type shape right down there, so I knew that was the right spot. I think that was a hint or a clue from the keepers of the hunt. So again, the second pin that we had to put on our map was at Fort Meigs Historic Site, pin number 2. Once we pressed onward, we saw this. It says, "Soon the next clue will be revealed, but first a cipher is entrusted to you. It will not speak plainly, nor in words at all. As with the mark you set upon the map, its use lies ahead, carried in a sequence of expressions, each saying more than it lets on." And again, that was for future use. And at the bottom left on this slide, you see the word onward. So we pressed onward, and this is what we found. We found a clue on the left. It says, "This small bird sings its own name. Hear its song." We clicked on it, and it made a bird song. I'm not a bird person, so I didn't recognize the bird's song. It turned out it's a chickadee. It says, "Through careful making, it gathers, remembers, and forms its nest strand by strand." strand by strand. Follow its call to a place given to fiber, patience, and craft, where such a nest would naturally be made. So we went to Chickadee Knit Studio at 322 Louisiana Avenue in downtown Perrysburg, and we found the next clue. It is a piece of paper that talks about the quilt mural. It says 250 at the top in celebration of America's 250th birthday quilt mural. And there's some other information. I did not know what to do with that, and I wasn't even sure that it was the right clue. So I did stop by the shop the next day because it was closed on the day that I stopped by. And I was assured, yes, that was the clue. So we visited the quilt mural on July 15th, and we did not know what to look for. Really cool patches of quilt material or crocheted items, but I didn't know what I was looking for. I missed something. I knew it. I felt like we got stuck and we could not figure out this clue. So we went to Hunt headquarters on Thursday, which is usually at the farmer's market, but it ended up being at the lower level of Way Public Library. We went probably at 7 o'clock in the evening. There was too much wildfire smoke. I think the whole farmer's market got canceled that day for safety reasons. When we went to Hunt headquarters in the basement of the library on Thursday, July 16th, Kate gave us a sharper image of the quilt mural portion of that page that we found at Chickadee Studio. When we saw the quilt mural section more clearly, we could see that there was a Morse code border. At the top, there's some, and at the bottom, there's some. The top line, once we looked up what Morse code was, we know what it is. We just didn't have it memorized. Okay. The top line says, find the quilt square 3 over 4 down. So the top line says, find the quilt square, and the bottom line says 3 over 4 down. So we went back to the quilt mural and we found it. But that quilt square also had some Morse code in it. And once we deciphered it, it says Bee House, meaning Bee House Blooms, which is at 101 Louisiana Avenue. We went there right after we figured this out, and we found this. It looks like flowers, and we didn't know what to do with that, and we weren't totally sure that was the right clue, but I went back the next day and confirmed with the shopkeeper that that was in fact the clue. In the lower right-hand corner of this print of the flowers, you will see the initials TGPTH, the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt. That was our double check that this was in fact the next clue. Then we had to figure out, what does this mean? I see a bunch of flowers, and I thought maybe the first initial of each flower name was part of it. So I figured out what all of the flowers were, and I didn't know if I'd have to unscramble them. But anyways, the first letter of each flower was, as pictured here in this slide, gathering volumes. And just in case you're a flower person and you would like to know the names of all of these flowers, they are top row, geranium, aster, tulip, hyacinth, echinacea, rose, iris, nasturtium, and geranium. And then the bottom row this is from left to right, violet, orchid, lily, umbellifer, marigold, echinacea, and sunflower. Again, this clue leads us to Gathering Volumes. On July 17th, we headed to Gathering Volumes bookstore. Craig and I were on this clue. We looked in the lower right-hand corner of the shop window, and we saw what I call the Lego clue. It looks like a bunch of Legos. I have it kind of blown up on the right there so you can see it. From the top to the bottom, it says level 6, level 5, level 4, level 3, level 2, and level 1. And it looks like you build something from the bottom to the top. And just looking at it, I had no idea what this meant. We got stuck, and we could not figure out this Lego clue. We ended up using something online called BrickLink software. BrickLink software is what Lego builders use to hypothetically make their Lego designs before they build it with their hands in real life. And we quickly discovered that it looked like that, and that did us no good. That was not the right tool. So we went to Hunt headquarters for a hint on July 18th. I believe it was a Saturday, so this was at Way Public Library. Kate was there, Kate, the keeper of the hunt, and she showed me how to build the letters on graph paper. So level 1, level 2, level 3, 4, 5, 6. I used a marker on this graph paper, and one by one, I figured out what the letters were. The letters I and T were pretty easy, so I didn't graph them out. But the letters, I had to unscramble them here, but they spelled Kingston, Kingston. That puzzle then led us to Kingston on East Boundary Street. That's where we picked up the next puzzle or clue, however you want to call it. The puzzle's at the top right, and the key is at the bottom right. Of course, they don't give you the key when you find the puzzle. The key was from a previous website clue. So we just kept that handy and used it for this puzzle. Once we solved the emoji puzzle, or emoji cipher as I call it, it says, "Drawn into place." That's the title of this. This quest now carries you to another essential place, one that lies just off the common way, not far, not hidden, but rarely announced. Seek this building where plans are weighed, where lines are drawn before stone is set, and careful minds decide how a city fits together. Do not look first to the street's bright face. Look instead along the narrow way, behind the vessel held high above the streets. There, tucked close to the heart of Perrysburg, stands a small brick keep, modest but assured, where the city's workings quietly take shape. And I took that to mean the engineer's office. The city engineer's office, which I accidentally came across when I parked my car at Schaller Memorial and in stage 1 was looking for the water tower clue. There you go, city engineer's office, next stop. If you've never been to the Perrysburg Engineering Division, it's technically on 5th Street, but the entrance is behind the building. If you park along 5th Street, you'll have to go all the way around to the back side of the building. However, if you park at Schaller Memorial, then you can just find the door that you're seeing right here pretty easy. And that's why I accidentally stumbled across it in stage 1. At the top right, it says, "You've found the keep. Come on in. If we aren't here, look under the bench." Well, I looked under the bench during stage 1 and I found the puzzle, but I went ahead and took another one because I did attempt it and I failed. So I needed a clean copy. When I got the puzzle, it looks like what you see in the bottom right-hand corner. This is it a little bit larger. The puzzle's on the left, and 2 puzzle keys for later are on the right. There's one on the top and one on the bottom. When I saw this puzzle, I didn't know how to do it, but I attempted it. I attempted it during stage 1 and failed. I attempted it again during stage 2. Now, the key on the right kind of gave me the idea to assign numbers to letters of the alphabet. I don't know if you can see it because it is kind of tiny, but the A is labeled as number 1, the B is labeled as Roman numeral number 2, and so on and so forth. So I did realize that this could be a math puzzle, but even though that key was not for this puzzle, I assigned numbers to all of the letters there, and the letter Q plus the letter C equals the letter T. So it was almost instructing me what to do. The letter Q is number 17. You know, if you label the alphabet 1 through 26, the letter C is number 3, the letter T is number 20. So that little green bucket there in the puzzle was an addition symbol, an addition sign. This puzzle is kind of confusing, and I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing, but just so you know, it was an alphabet and number puzzle, kind of like a math puzzle. And at the very bottom, you see some blank squares. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to figure this out? We got stuck, and I didn't know how to move on. So since we couldn't figure out this puzzle, we went back to Hunt headquarters on July 20th. I think I had to wait all weekend before I got an answer. So we went on Monday, July 20th, and Kate gave me a hint at Hunt headquarters in the basement of Way Public Library that this is an alphabet and math puzzle. I kind of had an idea of what was going on, but I just didn't know how to finish it. And at the very bottom, you can't see it because I wrote in pencil, it says Buttonwood, 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 the name of a park here in Perrysburg. So next stop, Buttonwood. Thanks again for the hint, Kate. This was a really hard puzzle. For me, I think this was the hardest puzzle of the whole entire stage, too. When I headed to Buttonwood Recreation Area with my son Craig, we drove on out there, and there's an information stand at Buttonwood Recreation Area on Hull Prairie Road, famous fishing spot, especially for the walleye run in the spring. And all I did was take a picture of it, and then I used the key that I found at the Perrysburg Engineering Division to solve this puzzle. This one was straightforward in my humble opinion. Took some time, but still pretty straightforward. On the left is what it says. It says, not grand nor bold, still firm in form, this oldest home still stands fast. Its halls recall a distant page, its rooms enshrine the local past. Moved from a prior site, still it stands, gazing across the riparian stage. Riparian, by the way, means located on a river. Search for the olden local, visit this home of a former age. So the key words here are visit this home. And the next stop then was the Spafford House. I had read, I believe it was in the Then and Now book by Gary Franks and Mayor Mark Weber, about how the Spafford House was moved from its original location to its current location because I believe they were trying to change where the opening of Fort Megg's historic site was. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I read it in a history book basically, and that's how I knew, oh, for sure, this is the Spafford House Museum. The Spafford House is our next clue. I Googled the address and off we went to the Spafford House. When we got to the Spafford House Museum, which I've actually never been to, even though I've lived here for almost 20 years, we looked by the front door and we found the next clue there. The clue is pictured on the left of this slide, and it says, where the town took root, the Spafford House, and the founding of Perrysburg. This was June 20th around 6:30 p.m. So if you can imagine, we got the Buttonwood clue at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. By 5 o'clock, I was going to Buttonwood to get the puzzle. I solved the puzzle. We ate dinner. And then my husband and I took our son Craig out to the Spafford House. We found this next clue. And as we read to the bottom, we found some gibberish. And there it is. And we knew there was something special about that. And we thought, what do we have? What kind of tool do we have to figure out what this says? And it was a key from the engineering division. So we used the key from the engineering division to solve this puzzle. Truth be told, I put it into ChatGPT and it solved the puzzle for us. It says, more of Amos's history is shared nearby. Treasure hunters set forth toward the fort that watched the river just east of this house. A marker waits, set in bronze. Its words are not meant for every eye. Lay the key you were given upon the marker. Align what has been printed with what endures. Using the humble tool placed in your hand with pressure and patience, draw out what lies beneath. The hidden words will rise. Carry them with you and speak them softly to the keeper of books at way. Only then will your path forward be revealed. That had a lot of information in it. It talked about going east of the house, which to me meant Fort Megg's historic site. And it talked about laying a key upon a marker, and hidden words will arise, and speak them to the keeper of books, meaning a librarian, at Way, meaning Way Public Library. And then the path forward will be revealed. So we figured, okay, next stop, Fort Megg's historic site. When we went to the Fort Megg's historic site, we went up to the Amos Spafford historical marker because that made sense to us. And when we stopped, there was somebody already there. There was another treasure hunter there. So this person was laying his key upon the marker and rubbing with a green crayon. We watched and we learned from him. And then we got our stuff and we did it too. That was pretty cool that we got a preview. This is us at home. We were on our hands and knees taping together the 12-page key that we would then use at Fort Megg's historic site on the Amos Spafford historic marker. The stage 2 materials envelope had all of these 12 pieces of the key. So all we had to do was figure out how to put them together. There were little symbols on each piece of paper to help us figure out how to put this all together. There were, for example, 2 asterisks that you had to line up, or 2 triangles. It was really pretty easy to do, but it was time consuming. We used Scotch tape, and I have some scrapbooking tools at home, and I used I call it a cutter peed, and you just put a piece of paper in there and then you roll it back and forth and it chops off the edge. So we had to chop off the edge of a lot of different pieces of paper and assemble it. We were highly motivated because we knew it could be done. We had seen it from the guy who gave us the preview. So we hurried up and did ours. I think it only took 15 to 20 minutes. Then we headed over to Fort Megg's historic site with our key that we had assembled. In the image on the right, you see our son Craig and my husband Nathan holding the key, and we're right next to the Amos Spafford historical marker. It's very exciting. We knew what to do because we had seen it done before. So we used some painter's tape and our green crayon that came in our stage 2 materials envelope. So this is us on July 20th at 7:45 p.m. We got a lot done for the stage 2 of the treasure hunt on July 20th. On the right, you see me victorious holding my crayon, and I had rubbed the words that were underneath the key onto the key, and it said the words that you probably can't see right there because they're a little bit small, but it says, "The aurora was extinguished at the outbreak of morning." I don't know if you can see that there on the key, but when you rub with the crayon, it really does come up pretty neat and tidy. You can tell which letters are supposed to be there. This is us this is me at Way Public Library on July 20th, about 8 p.m., 30 minutes before the library closed. We found Richard Baranowski, the local history librarian, and we told him the aurora was extinguished at the outbreak of morning. And then he gave us the next clue, which was a book and a bookmark. And it looked like this. The book says The Perrysburg Story, 1816 to 1966. And then on the right, the bookmark is pictured. At the top is one side, at the bottom is the other side. The directions say, "The first phrase has been uttered, the next must be uncovered. You have 1 hour with this volume, remain within sight. When you are certain, return this book to its keeper and speak the new phrase softly." Softly so nobody overhears. But they were wrong about "you have 1 hour with this volume" because the library was closing in about, probably 30 minutes, less than 30 minutes after we got the book. So close enough, right? What we did was we took a look at this bookmark. I don't know if you can see it because it's awful tiny in this picture, but the bookmark told us which page, paragraph, sentence, or line, however you want to say it, and word to select from the book. My husband said that the whole treasure hunt reminded him a little bit of the video game, The Legend of Zelda, and I think that he said that he had done something like this before. So he knew right what to do. He was the MVP on this leg of the stage 2. Once we got the words, we had to unscramble the words to make a phrase. And the phrase that we had to tell to Richard Baranowski, the librarian, was, "The lights burned bronze and dawned on the dark river." And we double checked ourselves using ChatGPT. So we took pictures of all the pages of the book. We did find them ourselves, but we wanted to double check ourselves because we had limited time and we didn't want to mess it up and have to do it again the next day. So we did get it right. We just hadn't unscrambled them by the time we checked with ChatGPT. But ChatGPT found the phrase for us. I mean, they put it in the right order. Now, looking back on this, I'm wondering if the colors, like the colors of the rainbow, may have been a clue as to what order to put the words in, but I didn't take time to look at that. Like I said, we were under the gun. We didn't have much time, but we got it done. Once we told Richard the phrase, "The lights burned bronze and dawned on the dark river," then he gave us the next clue. Actually, he showed it to us. So we didn't get to take it with us. We took a picture with our smartphone, and it looks like this. At the bottom, it says, "Call Charles W. Elliott," and Elliott is spelled with 3 L's. The number is 419-874-9147. So we took that information and we left right as the library was closing. And that night, I called the wrong phone number. I called 419-874-9747. And the actual number is 419-874-9147. For some reason, I misread the 1 for a 7. I know it's an oops. And I tell you this because maybe it happened to other people, but it did happen to me. And I felt embarrassed about it. But when I called the right number, I followed the voice prompt for Charles W. Eliot. And in my opinion, they misspelled Elliot. Usually it's Elliot. They spelled it with 3 L's, probably to give you a tip off or a hint that this is a fictitious person. So I did call the number and I got some information. There was a recorded message from Charles W. Eliot. And just to give you a summary of the message, because it was quite lengthy, it was at least 2 minutes long, if I remember right. And it said, mark your map where the bridge touches down upon the Maumee shore. And that includes, of course, getting out the treasure map. And the other clue that was in this recorded message said that at the end of a narrow alley on a hill near the town's edge was the home of a man who helped with the Underground Railroad. It didn't say that in that many words, but that's a summary of the message. So we figured we had to drive on over to one of the alleys behind Front Street, and near the town's edge, there's only a few streets before you get to the west boundary street. So I figured that's where we would find it. All right, so we took out our map. On the left-hand side, you'll see a red arrow pointing to a spot that is the 3rd pin. It's where the bridge touches down in Maumee. Let's see what the clue said. Where the bridge touches down upon the Maumee shore. I originally thought that it was the green region on the left, and I was wrong. It was actually the first stoplight, which I believe is called Conant and Broadway. So we put our 3rd pin there. Moving along, we went to the alley behind Front Street. There's a bunch of houses along, I guess that'd be West Front Street. And in the alley at the corner of Mulberry Street, we found a telephone pole with this beige-colored clue. It practically blended right in with the telephone pole, but that's where we found it, at the corner of the alley and Mulberry Street. My husband actually decoded this message. He did a great job, and he used the key that he got from Richard Baranowski at Way Public Library. The message says, Old Joe. That's the title of it, Old Joe. You have found Langford Hill. Here stood the cabin of Joseph Langford, whose courage helped guide freedom seekers towards safety. His actions here became part of Perrysburg's history. Go receive the next instruction. Visit www.perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/just one more stop before the treasure. And that's very exciting. When we went to that website, this is what we found. We found another key. It also led us to this orange clue, which led us to Milestone Park. This was still on July 21st. We made a lot of progress on July 21st. The website, in case you're interested, for this orange clue is perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/the first measure. Once we went to Milestone Park, which is located on Sandusky Street, we found another puzzle, and it was behind the milestone. We took the puzzle and the key that we had just found just a couple slides ago there. Just one more stop before the treasure. We solved the puzzle, and the puzzle says, count the miles behind you, measure the riddles solved, the paths walked, the stories uncovered. You have reached a milestone in more ways than one. Beyond this point, only a single veil remains. Seek the final word at www.perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/you're almost there. Read carefully. This last clue will take you the rest of the way. We were very excited when we found this one. When we went to perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/you're almost there, we found another key. So A through Z, and there's little symbols. And it says, you've seen these shapes before, scattered throughout the journey. They may have some like decoration, but you know by now, nothing here is by accident. Now, at last, they reveal their purpose. Look closely, decode carefully when the time comes, the final path begins. At the bottom right of this slide, you'll see the word onward. We clicked that, and then it says, the old road has spoken. Take up your map, place your fourth and final pin at the true witness in stone, the earliest mile still standing. I took that to mean Milestone Park. It says, fix it where the measure began. Let the road remember that you were here. When you're ready, click here. We were so excited. But we also had to place that fourth and final pin. In case you're interested in the website for this particular clue, it's perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/the final pin. Here's our treasure map. At the bottom right, you'll see the fourth and final pin. We placed it at Milestone Park, and we marked it with a number 4. The part of this that says, when you are ready, click here, leads you to this. You have fixed the 4 measures. Now let them speak to one another. Draw a line from height to height, from the pale blue spire crowned in gold to the stone that rises in remembrance above the river's old ground. Let sky call to sky. Then draw another from the river's yielding shore to the low and patient witness who first taught the road to count. Let earth answer earth. Where the heights speak across the sky and the ground answers in kind, find the place their paths converge. Set your eyes on that crossing, that X, for where the lines embrace, the treasure rests. X marks the spot. And the website where we found this is perrysburgtreasurehunt.com/lines converge. This is our treasure map with all 4 pins put in place, and the X marks the spot. It looks like it's down by the river, and it was. It was along the multi-use path. We searched the multi-use path that was July 21st. We parked at Orleans Park, and we walked down the multi-use path toward Hood Park. We did not find anything, so we got stuck right then and there, and my husband was not feeling the best, so we just decided to call it a day. That was 8:15 p.m. Now, we went to Hunt headquarters at the farmers market on July 23rd around 7 p.m. and got a hint from Kate. And then we went back to the multi-use path. And I've got 3 different pictures in this slide because I want you to see what we saw. On the left, it says, thank you for staying on the path. And then it's in the middle, it says habitat restoration. On the right, it says native plant patch. Can you spot us? And then there's a whole bunch of pictures of flowers and a bee and I think a butterfly as well. So those are some of the things that we saw on our way to the treasure. We ended up finding the treasure because Kate gave us a hint, and we found it under a fake rock off the path in a wooded area. I was very happy to find the treasure. My husband was happy too. He fears poison ivy. It was a wooded area. He didn't know if there was poison ivy there. So he just had me take some pictures, and we had to make a decision whether we wanted Craig to climb up the hill or not. And we chose not to because I didn't trust him to not break things as he climbed up. And there was directions to leave everything as you found it. So for that reason, we decided to just take a picture, and he was totally cool waiting at the bottom to see what I found. So I showed him pictures on my phone, and really, as a group, we found the treasure, and we were so happy to find it. Now, I have a confession. I am a rule follower in my real life. I am a pharmacist by training. I have saved many lives following the rules when it comes to medicine, and I have applied that to many things in my life. So since I am a rule follower, it actually worked against me to find the treasure. I did not expect the treasure to be hidden off the path in a wooded area under a rock for 2 reasons. Number 1, the stage 2 directions specifically mention that public places and publicly visible information are where you will find clues, puzzles, keys, etc. It says, before you continue, a reminder, all clues can be solved using public spaces and publicly visible information. Again, this is from the Keepers of the Hunt. So I figured it would be in a public space, easy to see from the path. And then the second reason that I thought, for sure it can't be off the path, is that there was a sign from the city of Perrysburg on our walk from Orleans Park to the treasure that says, stay on the path. Thank you for staying on the path. So I'm not trying to criticize so much as I'm telling you what I saw, and I'm telling you what my personality is. Once we found the treasure, I was just so happy to see it. I accepted that I had to break the what I thought were the rules, and I just went with it. There was one final puzzle once we found the treasure. The directions there, once we deciphered the puzzle, say to email a certain email address, and the subject line is, I found the treasure. And the body of the message just needed to have our full name and our phone number. And then it says your message will be time-stamped upon arrival. The order in which messages are received will determine your official place in the Great Perrysburg Treasure Hunt. You will be contacted as soon as possible and told your place in the hunt and the prize that awaits you. We emailed the keepers of the hunt on July 23rd and received our response on July 24th. It says, Kim, you did it. Congratulations. I'm so thrilled for you. You are treasure finder number 184. And I thought that was a lot of people that found the treasure. So congratulations to everyone who found the treasure. And then we we got notified that we could order a t-shirt and pick up a bumper sticker. We had to pay for the t-shirt that says I found the treasure, and we got the bumper sticker at no cost. We went to Way Public Library on July 27th around 7:45 p.m. and picked up that bumper sticker from Kate at Treasure Hunt headquarters in the basement of Way Public Library. At this point, I felt like the treasure hunt was over. We ordered our t-shirts. We picked up our bumper sticker. Happy ending, the end. Thanks again to Kate and Lacey, all of the organizations who worked with them to make this hunt happen, all of the sponsors. We had a blast. We have a little bit of a treasure hunt hangover because we had such a good time, and now the treasure hunt is over. So thank you again to everyone who made this happen. Thank you for watching our video. We found the treasure, and that's all we got. Thanks for watching our Stage 2 video. Take care.